So, hello once again, Business English 3 students. Hopefully, you've had some pleasant times during the Easter holiday or holidays. Um, Now it's essentially time to get back to business, so hopefully, you've been making some progress on your assignments. This week, the material itself is actually fairly brief in nature, and the assignment itself is more detailed. So, that's been posted, and I hope things are clear. There are still a few days left to complete that, but please have it done by the time we would have class this coming Thursday. So, um, essentially this is all about one project, which is Camisea, and I chose this because it allows us, as I mentioned in the notes that I posted some time ago now, almost 2 weeks, 10 days, that it brings a lot of these things to a head. You know, when we think about government responsibility, the role of private finance, how those interact, personal investment, bank investment, and ethics, then this is a situation where one must think about those entities as well as the general public good. And sometimes the general public good is not the same as the good for certain interested parties. So that hopefully led you to choose one of the groups in the actual assignment that you agree with and that you want to represent, but that's not the only way to do it. So I'll come back to that in a moment. I do want to go over some of the answers here. One of the things that I want you to talk about, and it was part of your task journal assignment this week, was the preview, and there was economic development. It says, how has the quality of life changed in your country over the last few years? What do young people have today that their parents didn't have? So one thing I could say in general, this is more of a question for you to answer than for me. I'm not sure I can't really put myself in the young people bracket anymore. But one thing that is become apparent to me, especially over these last few weeks when we've been in like isolation, is that I'm thankful at least that although I don't think our standard of living is better, I think actually we're going to be, my generation and your generation is very likely to be the first successive generations to have a standard of living lower than their parents' generation. There have been, ever since the beginning of the 20th century, 7, 6, 7, 8 generations where the standard of living was better and better and better and better and better, and that we are breaking that ascension now. But one of the things I'm thankful for despite that is that at least our ability to communicate is much more developed than it was. So in these kind of situations, I think it would be much more difficult if we couldn't speak with our loved ones and our family and friends. And these days, there are a lot of apps out there and, online opportunities so we can stay in touch with people very far away from us or just around the corner in these kind of conditions when we can't see them, can't we sit down and have coffee with them. So that's one thing that I think we have that our parents did not have, and our ability to communicate with those far away from us, I think keeps us more connected in a certain way, and I think that's nice. As far as Camisea and economic development, what we're looking at here is Peru, which is a country which historically has been exactly how to say, a little bit on the slow side. So a developing country, or a country that is not as developed as the most advanced and developed nations. And so, of course, they're looking to improve. And so the problem is that there's often mixed interests. And here you have the major collision between development and hopefully economic advancement versus environment and sacrifices to it. So both of those are extremely important. Depending on who you are, you could prioritize one or the other. And one, of course, the hope is that they could always get along, at least to some degree. And I think that's challenge of the assignment, and I'll comment on that a bit more in a few minutes. So here we had read a little bit to just get some backdrop. So number one was read the article on the opposite page about a proposed development project in the Peruvian rainforest. Are the following organizations for or against the projects? What are their reasons? So the Peruvian government is for. These are one of the three groups that we could choose for our assignment, and so one of them is for. The reasons are increase in GDP. They say cleaner energy, more local energy. They will be a net exporter rather than a net importer. They won't have dependence on other countries or other nations for their fuel, which makes them more financially secure and also more resistant to fluctuations on the international markets. Plus Petrol is for, and there's a very simple reason: money, money, money. So they are the consortium of companies, and they want money. That's what companies do. Um, Amazon Watch is clearly against. They are concerned not only about the Amazonian rainforest, but the people who call it home, as well as the repercussions down the line. This is a pipeline operation, and the final part of it would also be part of the Paracas Reserve, which is a marine reserve. So there are two different kinds of major, like, natural environments that could have negative repercussions from this, and then you could also have social, especially tribal, repercussions for isolated populations and their health and their society and culture. Um, then you have two different banks, but they're more or less in the same situation. So the Inter-American Development Bank and the U.S. Import-Export Bank are both kind of for it, but they're both for it in that they are willing to fund it, but and of course, banks want to make money, so they can loan money and then get more money back. That's how they operate. So they're for it because they also want to make money. But at the moment, they are pending. So they're not willing to give the money until there is approval. And the antagonism or reaction from organizations like Amazon Watch have prevented them from giving funding immediately. But basically, if one bank says yes, then the other bank will join in. Like Inter-American Development Bank, if they say yes, then the U.S. Import-Export Bank will also join in. So then we have this true-false part. It says, read the article then, which of the following will happen if the Camisea project goes ahead. Number one, Peru will become an exporter of fuel. This is true. We already talked about that's one of the reasons why the government would want it. Number two, the IDB loan could release further finance for the scheme. This is also true because, as we just mentioned, the Inter-American Development Bank, if they give money, then the U.S. Import-Export Bank would also give money. So more funding would open up. Number three, the Peruvian government will be able to give financial assistance to some of the poorer areas in the country. This is true. No, they will be able to. Whether they actually would is a whole other conversation. Number four, Peruvian companies will be able to reduce some of their costs. This is absolutely true. One of the major costs of almost any company is energy, and if the energy is more local and it is coming from the country and doesn't have to go through tariffs and fees, then it's going to be cheaper. That will reduce their costs. Number five, a road will be built through the Peruvian jungle. This is false. It is, as they said, offshore technology. So the actual sites, except for the pipeline is going to be built, but then the extraction on the site itself is going to be, the equipment is to be brought in via helicopter. So it's as if it was on an island and they're mostly flying over the forest. But the pipeline is still a large swath of the forest cut down for that purpose. Finally, the project will stop without the loans. That's false. It will maybe stop. It will very likely not stop. So the loans are being sought by Plus Petrol, and very likely by the government as well for them. But even if they're not given, it doesn't mean the project is going to stop. It may actually mean the project could be more damaging for the environment. Because it could slow things down, and there'd be less money for caretaking of the environment and the process there. So that's what makes the assignment for homework so interesting. Because here, it's already heading in that way. Number three says, according to its opponents, the Camisea project will have a negative impact in a number of areas. List 4 things that will be affected. We mentioned these a bit already, but it'll threaten tribes in the Amazon, rare species in the rainforest and along the pipeline. The export terminals would endanger the marine reserve at Paracas, and that there are social and environmental costs that sometimes cannot be minimized, especially given past circumstances and other projects that have happened in other countries that are similar. So massive soil damage is possible. And the marine reserve has already been damaged by other industry, and it's very likely that this would have similar repercussions. So the assignment itself is to prepare an argument for one of the 3 groups. So we have the consortium, which simply means group of companies working together. We have the government, and you could be representatives of those. And we have Amazon Watch. So The way I normally do this in class is we actually have a debate, and I'm sorry that we can't have this class because for me it's always one of the funnest and most interesting classes we have this semester. I would hope that all of our classes are interesting, but there are ones that are probably your favorites, or at least you dislike them the least, and there are ones for me that are my favorites. And here, if we were to have this in class, we would have a debate. And instead of you being able to choose which group you're going to represent, I mean, I think it's nice to be able to choose, but if we were in class, I would simply hand you a sheet and you'd get one of these three groups. And so even if you disagreed with it, you would have to try and defend that point. I think that's an excellent exercise in logic, is trying to see the other side of an argument. So we aren't able to do that. In class, though, that debate would go on. We'd have a structure, and we'd take turns, and we'd hear, from the environmentalists, and then we'd hear from the corporations, then we'd hear from the government. And what we'd really try to do is move towards some kind of compromise where we could hopefully protect the natural landscape, we could protect the species, we could protect the people, and we could hopefully provide some kind of economic benefit to the country of Peru and its population overall. And of course, we want to give money to those starving corporations and banks. So we can't do that live, and we can't have that debate, but I am very much looking forward to your ideas on this, and I've seen that some of them are beginning to be posted, and we have only a few more days left, so I look forward to seeing your perspective on this. I'm also interested in seeing which ones get chosen. I personally would, this is simply because of my personal leanings, I would join Amazon Watch, but the last job I had before coming back here to teach was working for a nonprofit environmental organization. So that's kind of one of my major concerns and one of my major passions. And I think that for the future of the planet, we must protect areas that are highly productive and that provide benefits to not only local populations, but the whole world. And the Amazon rainforest is maybe the most critical habitat on the planet. And so even that makes it a particularly strong case for protection, which is why I would jump on their side. But there are a lot of different opinions out there, and we always have some people who would choose one or the other. So I look forward to seeing what you produce. Good luck with your assignments this week. I'll read through them when I get them, and then on Thursday this week we will have new material posted so that we'll continue our exploration of the financial world. I think we'll move back a little bit from the theoretical and more on the focus of being an investor or a manager of money, similar to where we started this semester, or at least closer to some of the assignments that we had earlier in the semester. So, in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, good luck, and goodbye.